Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of What's New in Visual Media. Today, I'm introducing the crucial topic of AI bias and representation in visual media. So, quick example, you type meeting of 5 CEOs into an AI image generator, and all 5 of them will likely be white men. Now, the best way to truly explore this issue is to hear directly from those most impacted by these biases. That is, voices from underrepresented groups who live these experiences firsthand. While I wasn't able to bring those guests on this time, I want to acknowledge that commitment. Our aim is to center such a voice or voices in a future episode. In the meantime, for today's discussion, I'll be sharing some existing clips available online, and we'll include links to these clips below this video of ours. But think of this episode as a primer, an introduction to the conversation that we'll expand on with more diverse perspectives in the future. So let's get started and lay the groundwork for why this topic really matters. Thanks for joining me. Our first clip comes from Professor Casey Feisler, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing Professor Casey's name correctly there. She's an associate professor at the University of Colorado Boulder who studies technology, ethics, and online communities. On her various channels, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and more, she is known as Professor Casey, and her videos are wonderful. Go check them out. But in her short video called Different Types of AI Bias in AI Image Generators, she explains 2 key ways that bias shows up in AI image generation. One is a lack of representation, and the other is the reinforcement of stereotypes. And in this clip that I'll show in particular, she describes how AI systems don't just leave groups out, they also fall back on stereotypes.
But another version of this is stereotype. So if I asked an AI art generator for images of women, and every image they were standing in a kitchen or holding a baby, or go back to search engines when Safia Noble showed us that asking for images of 3 black boys gave us mugshots. So the issue with this Barbie is that when BuzzFeed asked an AI art generator for a Barbie from Sudan, she has a gun.
So as Professor Casey highlights, bias isn't always about absence. It can also be about distortion. So when AI systems repeatedly show women only in kitchens or portray black boys as criminals, they don't just reflect social stereotypes, they amplify them. And so these biases seep into everyday culture and they shape how we unconsciously see and value people. Again, search for Professor Casey on TikTok and elsewhere. But next, let's turn to the Knowledge at Wharton podcast, where marketing professor Kartik Hosanagar of the Wharton School spoke about his team's work developing an automated tool to detect bias in AI image generators. He explains why this kind of detection is so important at the massive scale these systems now operate.
Our research was motivated by the widespread use of generative AI systems today to generate all kinds of content, certainly text through systems like ChatGPT, but also a lot of image generation through tools like Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, Meta's AI, and even ChatGPT does image generation and so on. And while they're being used at an unprecedented volume or scale today, these systems do have biases. It's kind of what you were mentioning earlier. They're trained on data. Those data are generated by humans who have their own biases. And so they pick up their biases and in many ways institutionalize those biases and kind of do that going forward. So if you look at image generation as an example, in these systems, if you type in, say, computer programmer, you're probably likely to see most of the images being of males. And so these systems are prone to biases, but generally the biases get detected after the fact and usually by a human user using them and kind of saying, hey, I'm noticing a pattern. Or a journalist like you might notice a pattern and write about it. So we've seen, for example, Google's Gemini having bias issues and people wrote about it. And similar things have been written about pretty much every image generation model. So we set out to come up with a system that can automatically detect biases in these systems. And that automatic detection is extremely important because of the scale at which they're being used, but it's also a very hard problem. And so we wanted to be able to detect them and not just detect simple or the common biases like, say, gender and age, but all kinds of potential biases, and to be able to provide explanations to human decision makers. So that's what we set out to do and solve with this project.
What stands out in this conversation is the emphasis on scale. Professor Hasanagar points out that bias in a single ad or photo has limited reach. But when millions of AI generated images all lean the same way, showing programmers as young men or childcare workers as women, then those patterns start to shape our social imagination. And because humans can't realistically check every image, automated detection tools become useful for preventing biased outputs from quietly becoming the norm. So, as we've heard, AI image bias isn't just a glitch, it's a mirror of society's stereotypes, scaled up by technology. That makes it all the more important for us to think about responsibility in how these tools are developed and used. And again, we're looking forward to having our own more in depth episode on this topic. Before we wrap up for this week, a quick announcement. 1 week from today, September 18th, but at 9 a.m. Pacific time and 12 noon Eastern, join Dr. Ryan Abbott and Imagix for Pixels with Principles, Building Trust in AI-Driven Imagery. And together we'll explore legal and ethical challenges in AI image creation, privacy-conscious, transparent workflows, and how responsible AI can strengthen brand reputation. Thanks again for joining me this week, and we'll see you next week.